This is TOEFL IBT speaking test, and this test evaluates your ability to communicate in English in an academic setting. It consists of 4 tasks. Task 1, express an opinion on a familiar topic. Listening passage, conversation, male student, I'm really glad they're doing this. I've always wanted to create a short film for my media studies class, but renting a camera and microphone is expensive. With this program, I can finally try it without spending a ton of money. It makes school projects more accessible to everyone. Female student, I don't know. It sounds helpful, but I'm worried about practical issues. What if someone checks out the equipment and doesn't return it on time or breaks it? Plus, 72 hours might not be enough for longer projects. I feel like this could lead to scheduling conflicts and a lot of frustration. Listening passage, lecture, professor. To understand this better, let's look at 2 students. First, there's Max, who's on the track team. When he runs during practice with his teammates watching, he consistently beats his personal best times. Running is second nature to him, so the attention pushes him to do even better. Now, contrast that with Lily. She's new to public speaking. During her first presentation, she prepared well, but when she stood in front of the class, she froze and forgot her lines. Speaking wasn't something she was confident in yet, and the added pressure of an audience hurt her performance. These examples show how the presence of others can either enhance or hinder performance depending on how comfortable someone is with the task. Extended Task 4, Integrated Speaking Academic Lecture, Listening Passage, Lecture, Professor, let's talk about the endowment effect, which is part of behavioral economics. It's a bias where people value something more simply because they own it, regardless of its actual market value. This irrational behavior can affect decision-making in everyday life. One classic experiment involved two groups. One received coffee mugs as gifts, and the other received nothing. Later, the researchers asked how much each group would be willing to sell or buy the mugs for. The group that owned the mugs asked for nearly twice as much as what the non-owners were willing to pay. The mugs didn't change, only the sense of ownership did. Another great example is in real estate. Homeowners often price their houses based on emotional attachment rather than market trends. A person might insist on asking $400,000 for a home that is realistically worth $350,000 just because they raised their family there. This overvaluation can delay the sale and cause stress.
Personally, I prefer to take my time and carefully consider all the options before making big life decisions. Important choices, such as selecting a university, starting a new job, or even moving to a different city, can have long-lasting effects on my personal and professional life. That's why I believe a thoughtful, well-researched approach leads to better outcomes. For instance, when I was choosing a university, I didn't just go with my first instinct. I spent several weeks comparing different programs, reading student reviews, visiting campuses, and talking to academic advisors. This process gave me confidence that I was making the right choice for my goals and interests. While quick decisions might work in some situations, I think taking the time to reflect reduces the chance of regret and increases the chance of long-term satisfaction. In the conversation, the first student supports the shared equipment lending program, believing it will be beneficial because it allows students to borrow expensive equipment, such as cameras or projectors, without having to purchase them. This not only saves money but also promotes sharing among students. On the other hand, the second student is opposed to the program, arguing that it could lead to issues like damaged equipment or long wait times for items, especially if demand is high. I agree with the first student's opinion. While there may be some challenges, such as the potential for equipment damage, I believe the advantages of saving money and promoting a sharing culture outweigh the drawbacks. With proper guidelines and responsibility rules in place, students can ensure the equipment is well maintained. Additionally, the program offers students the opportunity to access resources they might not have otherwise been able to afford. The professor further elaborates that social facilitation is primarily related to how the presence of others affects an individual's arousal levels. For simple tasks, increased arousal can improve performance, as it makes the person more alert and focused. However, for complex or unfamiliar tasks, the heightened arousal might cause stress or anxiety, which can hinder performance. This idea is backed by research studies where individuals perform well in familiar or routine tasks, like a skilled pianist playing a song they have practiced for years in front of an audience. The social pressure enhances their confidence and results in a flawless performance. On the other hand, the professor provides an example of someone learning to play the piano. In the early stages of practice, playing in front of others might cause nervousness, resulting in mistakes. This is because the presence of others increases the pressure, making the individual more self-conscious, which impedes their ability to perform effectively. In essence, social facilitation shows how the influence of an audience can either boost or hinder performance depending on the task's complexity and the individual's familiarity with it. The endowment effect is a psychological phenomenon where people tend to overvalue items simply because they own them. The professor explains that this bias occurs because of the emotional attachment we develop to things that are in our possession, leading us to place a higher value on them than they may objectively be worth. For example, the professor refers to an experiment where participants were given a coffee mug and then asked how much they would sell it for. Those who owned the mug valued it much higher than people who didn't own it. The participants who didn't own the mug were offered a lower price for it, even though both groups were considering the same item. Additionally, the professor shares an example of ticket scalping. People who hold tickets to a concert or sports event often refuse to sell them at market value, even when they are offered a good price, simply because they feel the tickets have greater value to them personally. This effect shows that ownership increases an item's perceived value, leading people to make decisions based on their emotional attachment rather than objective assessment.